Welcome, everybody. It's your boy, the Versace Stunner. We have another episode of VSW. Tonight, we have a very special guest, the one and only Jason Maverick. Welcome.
Hey, how you doing?
How's it going? I have to say, I've been watching you around, up in Maine. I hot wind. I think the first time was a Let's Wrestle. You got an altercation with BRG, I think it was.
hmm
He was busting your balls out there, and from that point on, I started watching. I'm like, okay, there it is. And I'm a big passionate fan of this New England region and all the wrestlers in it. And again, you came up on my radar. So I'd like to know more about you, know more about what got you in there, what you've been doing in there, where you've been.
So I started my career back in May of 2018. I started training, and then I started getting on some shows in September, but I didn't have the proper training. So in October of 2020, I started going to the wrestling Limitless Wrestling Dojo, and from there, I debuted in Let's Wrestle in the Let's Rumble 2021, I believe it was.
Like after the pandemic era, like
Yeah.
after when they came back. And the dojo, really great school. I mean, it's producing stars left and right. Limitless, one of the top companies, I think, nationally. For wrestling, they've had some of the greatest and best superstars out there. So it's a great place to be.
hmm
Um, Now, what got you into wrestling? Is that something you've always just dreamed of? Something you watched as a kid?
Um, I always watched it as a kid. I always watched wrestling as a kid and growing up and stuff. And in my mind, I'm like, obviously, as a fan, everybody wants to be a professional wrestler, right? And that was just always what it was a dream until I moved to Maine in uh late March of 2018, and then I was given the opportunity to start training and be a part of the business and everything. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah, I mean, and that is the thing. I mean, I think it is everybody's dream, but it takes a little bit more than just dreaming to take that first step to whether it's to step in the ring for training and
Yeah.
to work on it, to step in the ring to even help out or to try to get on the show, to whatever you want to do. It's a big first step. It's a scary first step because there's a lot of rejection can be involved in that. You
Mhm.
don't there's a lot of emotion. You don't know if you're ready. You don't or what you can be, and you're walking into an environment where there's a whole bunch of you in that same kind of predicament, especially in the school, in the new school. There's a bunch of people that don't really know where the direction they're going, but they know they want something out of it. But they have the passion, and that's what kind of connects everybody, that passion. And that's
Yeah.
what you see, I feel, up in Limitless and up at the dojo, a lot of passion coming out of the superstars.
Yeah.
Um, so you started training up there, you started getting on shows in 21, and I take it you were working at Let's Wrestle.
Correct.
And for those at home that don't know, it's basically like Limitless's sister promotion, almost
Yeah,
like.
this I yeah, it's more of the sister company to Limitless Wrestling. I would agree with
Yeah, I
that.
mean, originally I think it was like kind of like their NXT, and then I've started to see like other talent that just are that good, but just kind of like BRG for instance, being the Let's Wrestle champion, he could be Limitless champion. It might happen this month. He's
Right. I
going.
mean,
He has a really big match in his title versus title, but he's
see,
been on both stages.
I would be there, but I'm booked somewhere else that night. So it kind of saddens me that I won't be able to be there, but I'm hoping I can catch it on IWTV on my phone while I'm down APW.
Yeah, yeah. And that's like probably my best friend in the world, IWTV. Anything that I can't see in person almost now is getting streamed some way through there. Because there's so much wrestling in one weekend.
hmm
Granted, if you're a wrestler, there's even more. If you're not, you're a fan, there's still a lot. Sometimes you gotta make tough decisions. It'll be like 3 or 4 shows in one night. It's like, okay, I got friends working in all of them. Everybody wants me to come. I'm sponsoring one in one state, town, and these people want me to go here. And it's like, what do I got to do? It's like sometimes you just make, decisions. Sometimes you go to the show you want to see, but what's going to give you the best match? What's the
hmm
best, the closest? Sometimes what's the closest? You don't feel like traveling. Last weekend I decided to go out a little bit. I went to Connecticut, went to Blitzkrieg. It was great. It was a little bit of a hike, but worth it. I don't mind traveling for wrestling. When I went to Let's Wrestle, it was 3.5 hour ride that day. It took me to
Wow.
get up there. Yeah, it was way up there in Maine. And granted, I wasn't going that fast, but the more we went into Maine, the more the weather started. It was like winterish time, so the more the weather started to turn. It's sunny here, and when I got up to where we were, it was starting to snow. And I'm
Hmm.
seeing signs for Canada. I'm telling my friend, we're not even really in Maine anymore. This is northern Maine. This is different. It's not what you're used to. Northern and southern Maine are two different spots.
Haha.
Um, but no, I love that though. The whole travel bit because it makes a day of it. It makes an adventure of it. And you get to have good, depending on when you go with, you bring friends. It's kind of like back in the day when you used to. Well, for me, I used to rent the pay-per-views. I'd have my friends all over and gather over,
Hmm.
and we get food and get that. That kind of dwindled over the years. People get older, but road trips that kind of picked up. And taking a road trip to a show, it's always great memories. I always have a fun time. And meet great people. But yeah, so now when you're working for Let's Wrestle, did you start venturing out of there and going other promotions at that time too, or just kind of home basing Let's Wrestle?
Um, for the past couple years, it's mainly been Let's Wrestle and the NAWA, and I've just started working for MPW up here, which is a new promotion.
Yep.
Uh, so for the past few years, it's been a lot of main wrestling. I've been out of state a couple of times to hit. I've wrestled in New Jersey once, and I've wrestled for NCW a handful of times. But now, that match that I had a couple months ago with BRG for the Let's Wrestle Championship, that really boosted my confidence. And I know I'm not quite where I want to be yet, but that just takes time. I just gotta keep trucking on. But uh, I'm booked for APW down in I believe it's New Hampshire in two
Yep.
weeks. And then
Atlantic
I'm
Pro.
also
That's
booked
great.
down there in August. So, slowly but surely I'm starting to branch out of Maine.
And you said you did some Northeast Championship wrestling over there with JC
No,
Marks.
not Northeast Championship Wrestling, NCW. Oh yeah, it is Northeast
Yeah, yeah,
Championship
it is. I know. I keep thinking it's the other one too. I always do the
Yeah,
same
my
thing.
my brain was like NEW, NEW, NEW. I'm like, no, I haven't worked for NEW.
No, I used to
Not
do the
yet.
same thing for so long, but no, yeah, Northeast Championship. That's on JC Marks has come back. That believe it or not, that's the first indie show I ever walked into. It was close to me. It was about 15 minutes, 20 minutes away from my house. I said, "Oh my God, there's wrestling in Dedham, Mass." And so I went in there and I was just mesmerized in 2017 by what the indie scene was, what people were like. When I went to an indie show back in the day, the tickets were given for free if we donated to the, police department. We get there. I didn't know any of the guys or girls. I knew the stars they were bringing. They're bringing like Honky Tonk Man, Greg the
Hmm.
Hammer Valentine, people that were like no longer in WWE but were doing the indie scene, but we would know them. So they were bringing a lot of one ups. But the scene itself, the wrestling itself, it just wasn't there. When I walked into 2000 in 2017, everybody had a character, a role. Everybody was known. They had their own fan bases. Fans were there actually cheering. Back
Hmm.
in the day, the fans were like crickets until they knew somebody. And it was just, I was mesmerized. Like, this is TV quality wrestling. It's just they don't have $1 million budget.
Hmm.
And that's kind of what made me want to launch, VSW and get more eyes and ears on that independent scene. Because I believe all the magic, everything you see, it doesn't matter where, it all starts at the local scene. I mean, if anybody wanted Money in the Bank last night, right? You saw, Carmelo Hayes in there. I mean, at one point, that was your limitless champion, Christian
Yeah,
Casanova.
yeah.
Um, you can see MJF at any time at AEW, but at some point he was the limitless world champion
Daniel
in front of the
Garcia as
smallest
well.
of crowds and the biggest of crowds. Didn't matter. He was on the indie scene.
Yep. Daniel Garcia as well. He's former Limitless champion too.
He was actually one of my favorite champions. Held it down during the pandemic. Everyone really just, you know, really gave us a good display of, a technical wrestler. Um, I remember watching him even like on IWTV. I went down there to watch him face Wheeler Yuta, and they gave like an hour of just one on one. It was just mesmerizing because they're both two incredible superstars. But again, he's
Mhm.
another one. Started in Chikara, started over here. they've all started locally. And most of the talent today that we see on TV at one point has been local or been even through New England. So for me, the excitement and all the, that it's all on these indie shows because that's where I'm going to see tomorrow's superstars. That's where I'm going to see people. And it's not even always tomorrow. Sometimes, I feel like the distance between people getting, into wrestling and getting to the next level sometimes isn't that long. You got people like Becca who blew up really instantaneously. You got other people that are, getting on TV quicker, like Max Caster and other people from this area. It just takes hard work, dedication, and continuous, learning, I think.
Hmm. I agree.
But yeah, Atlantic Pro, another great company. And again, I think they're the only ones that run in New Hampshire. So kudos to that. I heard New Hampshire's tough. You have to get licensed. You have to have a license. They're like one of the only states in New England you need the promotion stuff going on. Like the promoter got to get licensed and people got to pay fees and stuff. Where like Mass isn't like that, Maine's not like that, and New Hampshire is, and then I think New York is. New York's
Wow.
wicked strict. Forget about New York. Like I went to a show in New York and dude started bleeding. Now, mind you, it was a death match show, XPW. Guy starts bleeding. Commissioner just came in and shut it down. Nope, blood in the
Wow.
match. Stopped the match, and the next match it just moved on to the next. And I guess there's a no blood law in New York. If people start bleeding, they just shut down the match and move to the next.
Wow.
Yeah, so like every state's different when it comes to wrestling. You kind of gauge like, okay, so what's this gonna be like? How are people gonna adjust? Now, granted, this was Schlack I saw. He didn't really adjust too much. So like his match lasted 2.5 minutes. He started bleeding almost instantaneously when somebody threw a chair at
Wow.
him. But that's different. But yeah, I've seen Atlantic Pro. They're a very nice company as well, and that's great. To kind of work that New England area because there's so many also promotions like in between that will just kind of get eyes and ears on you as you go through. Granted, I
Hmm.
do think you are right. I think that BRG match was kind of a turning point. It always is when you get, a championship match and you get, that kind of limelight. But also, not for nothing, he is a formidable foe in New England. He has a name attached now to him. He's someone that's worked very hard. He's someone that I watched in actually NCW come up. He would come out every night, even when he was champion. People would be screaming at him, calling him Justin Bieber, calling him every
Hmm.
name in the book, booing him. But he'd keep coming up, and showing out. And now I feel like he's finally got some respect behind his name, and people do recognize him as that ship. And he is getting to, based, like I said, Channing Thomas for that world title versus title, which is just it's unprecedented right now in Limitless history.
Hmm.
Um,
Uh,
would you say before then, was that like your biggest match to date?
my most recent match with BRG would probably be the biggest match to date for me. He and I had a prior championship match up in Brewer. That was our that was our second going. Right after my father passed away, him and I had a match down in Buxton at Skips for the NAWA, which I had just started training. I had training prior before going to the dojo. So the promoter down there pretty much, he used me on those shows to help me grow and learn until I started at the dojo. So he, we built a story with Brett for that match. And then Brett and I didn't share the ring again until that first championship match in Brewer, and then not again until just a couple months ago at Let's Wrestle at Fairfield.
Yeah, yeah. But but yeah, and again, sorry for your dad. I remember that happening because again, you're pretty much like a second generation wrestler to some extent.
That's what they say. I mean, I think my dad started out training to be a wrestler, and then things just wasn't working out from what I was told. So he transitioned into being a referee, which he
But you're
seemed to
still part of
excel
the
at.
show, and he became senior ref, is what I
Yeah.
was told. Senior referee, and it's memory history, and and when that did take place, a lot of people were touched by that. That unfortunate events that happened. And it was interesting even with BRG because he's another person that lost his dad recently. So when I remember the exchange, it got into real world kind of. You guys he broke barriers, and it was just like he mentioned your dad, and and he was like, and I remember interviewing, I was like, you didn't feel no remorse with that? He's like, no, not really, because I have lost my dad, so it was just like whatever it is. And I was like, oh, okay, okay, I see. Because I had interviewed him probably like maybe a month after that match or after that interaction. But again, so coming in though, did you feel like did you know a lot of people coming in? Like, did you go to a lot of the stuff while your dad was reffing, or were you just kind of training to do your own thing at that point, anyways?
I didn't really see a lot of my dad's ref career. So like I said, I got up here in late March of 2018, and then he passed away in September of 2020. So like whenever I first moved up here, I didn't really go to a lot of shows until I started training, and then I started helping out with the ring crew and all that stuff. So um, I didn't go to my first Limitless show. My first Limitless show was the first Limitless show back from the COVID.
Okay.
So, I didn't see him rep in Let in Limitless. I may have seen him ref a couple matches in Let's Wrestle, but that may have been about it when it comes to the bigger stages of Maine. I know he refs for the NAWA, which I saw a few of those matches. Um, there might have been one other promotion that I seen him rep for, but I don't think that promotion exists anymore. So yeah, that I don't think it's existed for a little while. So like the name of it's kind of just
Yeah, yeah,
left
yeah.
my mind.
I'm trying to think if I can even remember because I know Maine has like they have a lot of long-standing ones like NAWA with Larry Huntley, and you got Limitless, of course, and then you've had reboots like MPW. That's coming back. That's the second
Hmm.
time coming back. Same thing with what is it? Adam Booker's promotion out there. Is it EWA or
Yeah,
ETA?
EWA, I think. Yeah.
EWA, that's another one coming back. And I was talking to some other guy the other day, he used to run a promotion. A lot of promotions have changed hands or closed in Maine
Yep.
over the years. The landscape has actually changed incredibly, but for the better in a lot of ways. I feel like Maine now is very rich in wrestling.
Yep. So like if you want to see old school wrestling, you go to the NAWA because Larry Huntley's all about his old school wrestling. If you want to see newer styles, Limitless and Let's Wrestle will be the places to be. You know, you you'll see some old school style wrestling in there. I mean, you got guys like Channing Thomas. He's world class. He's all about. I look at Channing Thomas and I see some guy that probably looked up to the Von Erichs in a way, just with his look and everything. You know, uh, you got the heavy brawlers like people like Iron Rip Bison and Big Beef Gnarls Garvin. So like there's some old school mentality and some of these characters like the ones I just mentioned, and
Oh, definitely. Like people like Rip and people like even like Perry Von, Vicious, and others. They'll bring you back to that kind of '80s wrestler where
yeah,
people were just big, muscle ripped, and just come out and just tear the roof down. But these people looked and acted like wrestlers.
yeah. I
There was
mean,
no mistaking that they did anything else in life but just wrestle.
right, and I got the privilege to have a match with Perry Von Vicious a few months ago. It was either late last year, early this year, but I was able to have a match with Perry Von Vicious, and that's another match that I've learned a little bit from because when you're in training, you're training everything. You're training a little bit of lucha style, you're training big men. It just depends on who your trainers are. So, the thing for me is, I'm learning the, fast-paced matches type of stuff. And then I'm learning the big man style. So sometimes for me, you know, sometimes I'm going too fast in a match and I got to remember that I got to slow down. If I'm working a big guy, I'm realizing I don't have to do a lot. We're both big fellas, you know what I mean? So it's not like I got to remember too much.
Sometimes the fans want to see that hoss battle. They want to see
Yeah,
the just the brutality. Even though they know and deep down a lot of fans know, the bigger guys can actually move just as much as the little guys. They really
yeah,
can. Like even Andre the Giant was told to scale back what he could do because it just wasn't realistic. Him jumping off the top rope would have looked ridiculous.
Hmm.
But he could have done it at one point if he wanted to, and that's the
Right.
thing. He was maneuverable. A lot of wrestlers get trained to be very versatile. It's just a matter of what looks good on camera, what makes sense, and
Hmm.
again, what's going to draw. And in your case, like you said, if you get two big guys, there's nothing worse than just turning it into a slugfest rather than a fast-paced lucha match
Right.
or something or some other style. Now, if you're in a tag match and people are moving faster and everybody's kind of zipping through, then yeah, you can pick up the pace and it makes a little bit more sense.
Hmm.
Um, but would you say like when you came in, okay, so you trained, you did this. Was there anybody in particular you kind of were like, I'm gonna kind of try to mold my career after this person, or kind of like shape my character around?
Eric Johnson, he's been a big part of my career. He's helped me. Um, he's helped me pick things up that maybe I wouldn't have picked up from other people. Um, Another guy I watch very closely is Big Beef.
Yep,
I watch his stuff, because he's the trailer park redneck or something like that, right?
yep.
In that big country. Now, Beef and I, he's from Louisville, Kentucky, which is about 45 minutes from where I'm from. So like, that also caught my interest in him because he was so close to home. But he's trailer park trash or trailer park
Yeah,
redneck,
trailer
whatever.
one to trailer park trash something. Yes, and
Yeah,
I
something
remember,
like that. So he's another big guy that I look, that I study and I watch a
and he's
lot.
held gold at Limitless. He was another champion.
Yeah, he was Limitless champion, which that what I was there live when he won, and my heart felt warm for him because again, with a guy like that being so close to my home, is like, wow, there's people from back home that are actually doing stuff like
And it's on a
this.
national level because I mean, even though Limitless might be taking place, in a smaller Maine town or in Maine, it's gone a lot big. I mean, their big show of the year is going to happen at the Coliseum, which is like unprecedented again for indie wrestling to have such an event anywhere that big. But
Yeah,
also,
I
through
mean,
IWTV, through power of YouTube, which again they have great numbers. Me being a YouTube person, I always looked up to Limitless and watched them grow and grow and grow. When you have those kind of numbers, you get a lot of views. So between those two, they're nationally and probably even at this point internationally known. People are getting that exposure like crazy. All of a sudden, scouts are hitting you up. WWE, AEW, people are getting, serious eyes and ears on them.
mhm.
Even coming to, like you said, coming to Limitless from wherever across the country. And he was one of those guys I feel like that, is another one. He was like a wrestler's wrestler. He was a man's man. You could relate to him. He was a working man, working class kind of guy, almost like a JD Drake. And he's another one that I really like out there that would come once in a while. Because they brought this,
Mhm.
character that you didn't always see. A lot of wrestling nowadays, the wrestler comes out, they're super athletic. They talk about how athletic they are. They talk about how good of a wrestler they are. But that's their character. They're a wrestler. But then you get these
Yeah.
other guys that are just like regularly, daily guys. They're just tough.
Dude,
Um,
I love the heavy hitting brawling matches. Guys like Gunther and Keith Lee and Samoa Joe, Braun Breaker. Those are guys that I've enjoyed watching here the past few years. Unfortunately, Keith Lee's been out with injury or sickness or whatever he's got going on. But I always enjoy watching his stuff. So
you kind of get into that kind of mode when you go in that mentality. You want to be one of those kind of hard hitting, you
yeah,
know, real just boom kind of characters out there. And now I know you were kind of the fan favorite against BRG. Is that something you prefer to be just, working on the fan side or
it feels good when you got a whole building chanting. That's one of those feelings that you're never gonna forget. That's one of those feelings that at every show that you go to, that you play the guy who loves everybody and the guy that everybody likes. That's the kind of feeling that you want to have every time you go out through the curtain. But being a heel is also the same way. If you've got people who are just like sitting there and they're not sure whether to boo or cheer for you, that's not something you want to that you like to experience. Now, when you go walk through the curtain and maybe you do your little stance, and you look around and everybody starts booing you, like you want people to react. And I think I've had more people cheer. I've had a bigger reaction as a baby than I have as a heel. I love playing both parts, but I think being a baby and being cheered feels better than being a heel. For me,
Yeah,
at least. I mean, I
it's
enjoy
harder.
both.
I think it's hard. I mean, it was not hard. It's different, and I think they both come with pros and cons. You know, there's two types of there's all types of babyface. Either the underdog babyface who's always trying to claw to the top, or there's just a straight babyface that comes out, and is the fan favorite. And each come with its pro and cons too. Like, Cody Rhodes, for instance, is a very good underdog person, but once he got to where he is, he's kind of struggling. They're kind of having issues of what to do with them. For other
Mhm.
champions, that are good guys that is kind of there. Hey, here I am. Like Hogan in the '80s when he was babyface, he was just there. Champion, cool. Everybody was happy. Nobody, he didn't have to really struggle much. Heels are different now. First of all, nowadays it's kind of hard to get everybody to turn because you always have people that are going to actually cheer for you no matter what. And I
Yep.
and I'm one of those people. I love the heel, so I'll be cheering for the bad guy, and they'll be
Hmm.
looking at me like still giving me the finger, and I'm still clapping, and I can tell they're agitated by me. It's like, dude, you're my favorite in this. What am I supposed to do? I can't change who I like. But you also got to come up with ways to basically get everybody to hate you without them, canceling or really hating you. So
Hmm.
you always got to find ways to get yourself and push your audience to that limit line, but know where that limit line is. If you go over it, you're going to be screwed. If you
Yep.
if you go under it, you're going to under deliver, and they're going to be like, well, he's not that edgy. He's not that much of a heel.
Hmm.
So you want to always try to hit that fine line. I feel like that's hard to do to get fans to really hate you, but not really, really hate you. It's like, when do I stop? When do I not? But again, everything has its own, like I said, pros and cons. I personally do like some to see some of the heels, especially the heels in New England work. I think that a lot of them, bring a certain oh, we have just unique people. Even like Chan Thomas, he's not very much liked, but the way Sidney Bakabella by his side acts, old school WWF Hall of Famer there. He comes out, he can draw heat like no other.
Dude, listen, so whenever I first started going to Let's Wrestle shows, Channing Thomas was like clean shaven. He had like the slight curly hair. He was doing the whole freaking finger, the smile gimmick and stuff.
Natural, the natural. Yep, he was the
The natural
natural.
Channing Thomas. That was natural Channing Thomas when I first started going to a Let's Wrestle show. And then, you know, the pandemic hit and he just repackaged himself and aligned himself with Sidney Bakabella, and now that's brought Channing Thomas to the next level. Uh, so I'm gonna we spoke before of BRG versus Channing Thomas for both the Limitless Championship and the Let's Wrestle Championship. I'm gonna be eyeing that match because eventually I need to work my way back up to the top, right? I came this close in Fairfield, and I came up short because you know I don't know. I thought I could go up to the top rope, and I thought I could hit the splash and maybe it'd be over. And I've come to realize that the top rope is not my best friend. So that's just something that I'm gonna have to remember the next time I get an opportunity at the Let's Wrestle Championship, whether it be against BRG, whether it be against Channing Thomas or whoever is the Let's Wrestle champion the next time I get an opportunity. I can't second guess myself. I have to be more focused. I went into that last match with Brett. I'd started going to the gym, so I'd lost some weight. I'd been training. You know, uh, so I went into that match with a lot of confidence. And I hit the roll up. He kicked out of that, and then I hit him with my finish, and he barely kicked out of that. And the reaction from that moment when he kicked out of the hay baler, or as some people like to call it, the black hole slam or the abyss slam, I like to call it the hay baler. When he kicked out of that, I felt my stomach drop. because I had just hit him with the biggest thing in my arsenal and I didn't get the job done. So the next time I get an opportunity, if I get an opportunity, you know, I'm gonna have to go in there and I'm gonna have to fight a little harder, dig a little deeper, and just remember, I've already blown two chances at winning the Let's Wrestle Championship. So if I blow the next opportunity, who knows if I get another opportunity at all.
Very true, very true. And I tell you, the top rope's a lot harder than it looks. I remember once I went to a fantasy training wrestling camp, and they had us doing all sorts of things. You run the ropes, you jump over the ropes, you get in and out of the ropes, you do all that. Then they're like, does anybody want to jump the ropes?
Hmm.
And they bring out the big, cushion for the middle where you try to hit, wherever you want to hit your target. And I was like, okay, cool. You get up on it. It's not what you think. It's not just a steady, nice turnbuckle. It's two ropes that you got to balance your body against. And
Hmm.
not only do you got to keep your balance, you got to watch who your opponent's doing, what's going on here, there, any which way. It's not an easy thing to manage. People see it and it looks effortless, flawless. And that's because, again, these are professionals doing it that are done it over and over and trained and just really perfected the art of hopping to the top and hopping off. Because if you like I said, me being pretty versatile, coming from a boxing world, coming from another sports world, I had to have somebody more to had to hold my freaking hand. I couldn't keep balance up there. It was
Hmm.
very hard for me to keep balance and keep focus on where I wanted to go. There's a lot of factors in wrestling I think that people take for granted because things look easy. Um, but that's not really the case. A lot of it takes a lot of training. And similar to boxing, and that, again, that's where I come from because I tried against the pro wrestling world. At the time I tried to come in, big little men were just not a thing. Nobody wanted the little guy, so they like getting trained was almost impossible. And so I just went into something that I could do, and that was boxing because it was weight by weight class. I was a very skinny, young, thin kid. So I went into boxing, amateur boxing, and the training for that and what I learned later for training for wrestling is almost synonymous. You go and do your regular gym work, maybe 3 to 5 days a week. That's to get your cardio built up so you can be in the ring, so you're not burnt out after 10 minutes. But then you go to your designated training for your boxing, your fighting, your skills. What are you gonna do? What is in your arsenal? What are you learning to unload? What tricks are you learning to defeat the next opponent? And you're gonna do
Hmm.
both like simultaneously because there's some people that will only focus on like the fighting part because that's the fun part, right? Nobody wants to have to go and run and jump rope and do all that. You want to hit the bag and work the things. But then you see the same people in these bouts and 10, 15, seconds into the match, they're gassed. And it's like, you need to work both. And again, if you just work, you could be the best gym member and go, hour matches. But if you're not caught up with your wrestling training, you don't have much in that arsenal to unleash.
Hmm.
And these champions are champions for a reason. They can withstand a lot more than you think. You know, um, you might watch WWE or AEW. Sometimes you've noticed it takes multiple finishes to finish off a champion or an opponent.
Hmm.
These people train to just almost work on autopilot. They can be knocked out, concussed, dead to the world, and their body knows to kick out. Their body knows to keep fighting. So
Hmm.
you've got to bring everything plus more, plus have something extra just in case. So when that time does happen, if they do kick out, you're not just sitting there like, I got nothing left. You got to have one more thing to be like, okay, well, I'll do it again, something. Because the
Hmm.
champions do train, they do work hard, and they are the best in the world for a reason. But yes, this is a very important matchup. This is going to change, I think, the landscape of what Limitless Wrestling is because you might have a unified champion. This puts a lot of people in contendership for that belt, and it makes a lot of people hungry for that.
I feel like it's going to make a lot of people hungry, but also at the same time, I feel like it's going to intimidate a lot of people because you have the guys down at Let's Wrestle who are, trying to improve their craft, trying to one day make it onto Limitless. And then, just here in 2 weeks, we're going to have somebody who's both Limitless champion and Let's Wrestle champion. So I feel like, for me, I'm going to be a little intimidated
But
because,
but but you got to remember, BRG before he was Let's Wrestle champion was on Limitless in the trios, with John Alba. with
Yep.
Channing Thomas, with Mac Daniels, the former,
Former
Let's
Let's
Wrestle
Wrestle
champion.
champion. Yeah.
So you had those three running in regular Limitless, and then they all kind of diversed and came back and went here and there.
Hmm.
BRG has been kind of the gateway in between the both, and maybe MSP was too. I've seen them fight on both. But yes, I get what you're saying. It's going to be, not everybody has fought on that grander stage. Not everybody, and to them, it is a grander stage. It's almost like, the NXT to the Monday Night Raw. It's like, here we are, and oh, and there we are. But it will also be a great opportunity for guys that do want to get to that next level to kind of grasp it now. Now they don't got to worry about getting one title and proving themselves to get to that next spot. It's like, maybe I could just go all for the gusto in one shot. Maybe I can just grab the titles right now and beat whoever's champion and prove that I belong, where I belong.
Hmm.
And it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see who wins, how that even, plays out. Because either person winning will change the landscape of how it even gets defended or where it gets defended. I've never
Yep.
seen Shannon Thomas come to Let's Wrestle. So I don't know if he's been there.
I think the last time Channing Thomas was in Let's Wrestle, he wrestled Gangrel. It was in that little flea market there in Brewer, I
Yeah, yeah,
believe.
yeah.
So it's been a while.
Yeah, so I mean, will if he wins, will he be coming down there to defend the title on that show? Or will he just be like, no, people got to come to me? BRG, I feel like will go everywhere. He likes to travel. He'll go down to Brewer. He'll go down to Yarmouth. He'll go wherever and defend that title. So you're gonna have a lot of things. Plus, again, you got Vacation Land coming up, the biggest ever at the
Yeah.
Coliseum. I mean, they're pulling it off in a stadium basically.
And you're gonna get matches like Scotty Too Hottie versus Dirty Dango. Dijak's gonna be there. Uh, I think we're getting Ricky Smokes versus Aaron Rourke on that card, and that's a match that's been building for months, and a match that I myself am looking forward to. Um, you know,
Not to mention, I told Randy himself, if he just says the name, Joe Hendry will appear.
I I I feel like if Randy could get Joe Hendry, that place would pack.
I teased him about it because it's something that I can honestly picture Limitless pulling off.
I can
It's
see it.
it's not out of the realm of things that is in abilities because face it, they have an AEW world, they've had AEW world champions of their own. A lot of people come and go from Limitless to the next level. Almost everyone that's held that title has been picked up by a major brand.
Hmm.
And they have very good work. If they do that, like I said, the Coliseum will just blow right away. But it's going to be crazy though because, and I'm very proud of it. Being a wrestling fan, being an indie wrestling fan, sometimes you get down because you go to shows. There's not a lot of people. They're like, who can enjoy this? 20 people in the crowd, 40 people in the crowd. They don't understand. It's the venue size doesn't matter. The show's the same. But now when you see these people taking their product and they're able to get into these bigger places, it's like, wow, good. This is what you deserve.
Whenever I got, the notification that I was booked for APW next year in a couple weeks, I was super excited because one, it was something new. I'm going to be, wrestling in front of a whole new crowd, all new faces, and I've seen video clips of, matches from APW, and the crowd seemed to be a really decent size. So I'm really excited to, go down there and wrestle in front of a bunch of new people.
Yeah,
Although I
they're
am,
a great crowd over there. APW, granted, I haven't gotten to one of those shows, but I know people that have gone. I've seen footage there, and I know people that are in the crowds. Their crowd fan base very good. And it is a new exciting crowd to work in front of. And I think that will be another great kind of leeway, especially if you're trying to get, into more shows. ABW has another whole set of webs that you can go from there too, and just
mhm,
where the talent goes, you can go. And that's the thing about New England. You get good in one spot or people like you, almost everybody is gonna want to see you. And there's so many shows in New England that you can get almost in like 4 or 5 states really fast, which is
mhm.
nice. That's great exposure. And it never used to be that easy. You might stay in your town for 10 years before you could get out. Now things are very versatile. People can move around. If you know someone in another show, people social media can help. Someone, they're like, hey, I got a friend here that worked there. Oh, you got a friend here, cool. All of a sudden people are cross booking and people are just kind of uniting. Plus, not to mention now I'm seeing a lot of promotions work together. Let's
Mhm.
Wrestle being one of them. I saw that their title be defended at Proving Ground, for instance. BRG fought Dustin Waller. He defended his
Wow.
title against him. That was a great match, but it was great to see a title defended on another show that's a different promotion. I love seeing that because at the end of the day, again, it's a community, the independent wrestling scene, and the fans are pretty united for the scene itself. Nobody really picks sides, so the promotions can work together. It's fine. People enjoy that.
See, and I've wrestled for companies that will beef with other companies, and I don't understand that because we're all here to make wrestling better, right? So why are companies butting heads over who works where? You
And
know,
I think that's the big issue because it makes no sense to me because nobody is contracted.
exactly.
Everybody's gonna work where they're gonna be booked. So to tell a worker that they can't work in another promotion, well, unless you're gonna pay that worker to not work, you have no say where that person goes.
Right.
Hate to be that person to break it to you, but you can't do that. That's you have no. That's why it's independent. You're an independent contractor. You're an independent star. You can go wherever you want.
Hmm.
Um, Granted, they throw a nice contract at you, and that's something you want to do and work in one promotion forever or for however long. Cool, but that's not usually the case. I don't know anybody that is contracted. And to see that kind of beef, all it does is really honestly hurt the fans because they have to now choose between shows and they might have favorite wrestlers on each card. And it's like now you're just pulling them away from double the profit. Because if you just kind of space things out, they're gonna go to both shows. They're gonna support the same superstar twice. They're gonna maybe buy merch twice. And there's enough fans that every promotion can make money off of the same fan base because the fans aren't fighting over which show to go to. It's not like AEW and WWE where they're fighting every week on the internet. Nobody's doing that on the indie scene. It's the most peaceful place. Everyone's happy. They're just like,
Hmm.
oh, who's gonna be the next breakout star? Or who's gonna be this? Or who's gonna be that? Oh my God, look at Cruel. He's destroying this. People are excited for that. And I think that's one of the biggest draws that drew me into that scene was the fan base. It's not so toxic as the main fan base of pro wrestling, which gets very opinionated, and that's fine. Opinions are great until you
Hmm.
start telling other people that their opinions are wrong, and then it's like that's where you get into, you know, the wrong territory there because
Yep.
everybody's entitled to their own belief on, especially on something so subjective as pro wrestling.
Agree.
But yeah, so you're over there, you're going to APW. You also mentioned you're going to be working for MPW. That's another new promotion, but they've been running some great shows. I've been following them closely. Um I've had their hardcore champion Johnny Primer on my show a few times. I've talked to Meg Lavelle, the ring announcer, a few times. Great crew. There's some great superstars. Talk about Perry Von Business champion over there.
Yeah.
And he's another heavy, hard hitting. And that's another thing I wanted to touch on when you mentioned that. A lot of people have been, to and from Japan, which is known for their hard hitting, hard style, and they're bringing that back into the States, which is nice. You're getting that style. You're getting that strong style almost here, which again is going to be more, physical, more battling. And it
Hmm.
may be a little bit more less, technical, but like you said, when the big guys are going at it, there's nothing quite like that.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think I'd want to see Big Beef in a 30-minute technical match. Neither would I want to see, Earthquake in a technical match. I would like, just certain wrestlers you think of, it's like, oh, I would like rather see them in, a brutal match. I remember my first Big Beef match was him versus Rip Bison, and it was a dog collar match. And these two just ripped each other apart. And I was just like, this is 1970s wrestling. Like, this is
Hmm.
brutality at its finest. And I was in love at that point. I'm like, this is great because you don't get that a lot. A lot of people want to use what they know technically, and that's fine too. But sometimes just to show what wrestling used to be like, or to get that other side of wrestling, it's great to view. And it brings another element to a show because granted, not every show is a great mix, right? You don't just
Mhm.
have one style. There's not just hardcore matches or technical matches. Limitless is actually great at just spreading out that card. You'll have, a Mason match here, and then you'll have, a technical match here. You may get Lee Moriarty over here or this one over here. You never know what you're gonna get. But it's a good blend. And that's what I think for a lot of the promotions in New England. I think we get a good blend, a good mix of what to expect. Where I watch shows in other territories or down south or out other places, and like the whole card is almost the same match, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, the smaller companies up here, so like the NAWA, you can get the match down there in southern Maine, but then you can travel all the way up to Crown of Maine and get some of the same matches up there, or MPW, that MPW uses guys from the past and current, and then guys who are trying to make a name for themselves. So, like, you can go to a couple of spots in Maine and get the same matches, but it's going to be in front of different crowds because, a lot of people from Crown of Maine, that's up there, near Calais, near Canada. They're not going to travel all the way to Brewer, Maine for a wrestling show. They're not going to travel down to Fairfield, Maine. They're not going to travel down to Buxton. So when you see those matches upstate in, near the main Canadian border, those are new matches for those people. But they're not, the
For fans
talent.
that do
Oh, okay,
travel or for the talent, they're not necessarily new. Like I said, for me, I might be one that would say, hey, let me go to Brewer, Maine. Let me also go to, Rhode Island. Let me go to New Jersey. Let me go to, wherever. So I might see the same matches. Well, and sometimes I have, but you're right. It's in front of a different crowd, and those people, for the majority, wrestling's gotten to a point where it's made so you don't have to travel too far to see a show.
yeah.
You can see a local show. You don't have to travel hours upon hours if you do not want to. Now, if you want to, you can. It's there.
Mhm.
And sometimes, the draw is, if you go to those, tip of the top Canadian shows, maybe they'll bring in some of the Canadian talent that you're not going to get on the other main shows, which, that can happen too. I actually had the owner of that promotion on not too long ago too. He was talking about it. And we were talking also about because he's part of Hyper Poutine. He works, does some work with MPW too.
Hmm.
And Maine is becoming like that. It's becoming almost like a united front in wrestling where wrestlers and promoters are all just kind of working alongside. And like I said, the landscape of what it is so much different. It's not so scatterbrained. It's like very organized now, and it's very. I would say some of the best wrestling again in the world is coming out of Maine.
Hmm.
Right now it's a hot spot. And part of it is you do got a lot of hot shows, and then you got some talented return like Dirty Dango coming back, working a lot of main shows, really elevating a lot of the rosters and teaching what he learned.
Hmm.
And teaching that to the next. Plus, you got great trainers at the schools out there. Dojo, you got a lot of great trainers and a lot of great experience too.
Hmm. Uh,
It's
I mean, you guys got like have trainers like Aiden Agro is one of the trainers there. Alexander Lee, Calvin Strange, Eric Johnson trains from time to time. One of my old trainers, Danger Kid. I will sit here right now and admit, you know, all the trainers push you at the Limitless Dojo, but Danger Kid is one of the trainers that pushed me the hardest. And, I know that Danger Kid, he'll never be able to step foot in Let's Wrestle. I mean, in a Limitless ring again, and that's sad. But every match that I have on a Let's Wrestle stage, I think of Danger Kid because if it wasn't for Danger Kid, I wouldn't have been pushed so hard, and I wouldn't be where I am today.
No, and that's the thing. That's their other house. It's a household names. Again, It's funny, on that 2017 NCW card, I would run into, MSP and Alexander Lee was on that card too, and I'd get to meet Alexander Lee. And he's another one that I've kind of watched over the years, and just he's a very staple in what pro wrestling is in New England. I mean, he's just something very versatile. He knows how to technical wrestle probably with the best of them, but I love that just he brings a hardcore aura to it that's different than other people's hardcore. It's not your GCW extreme, but it's not your, ECW. It's something very different. It's
Mhm.
his own way. It's hard to explain, but he's his own style and he just really delivers. And all of them, MSP, him, they all know how to tell a story really well through their matches and
Mhm.
draw emotion out. I remember when, if you want to go back a little bit, when Prestigious, basically beat them and they left Alexander Lee in the ring crying. People felt that. They were like shot to the heart with MSP dead.
Yep, I watched it. I
Um,
was there live when I was there when that match happened.
when
I remember I
Agro,
remember that match.
I've probably seen you in the crowd a dozen times. I went to a lot of those shows in 21 and 22. It's funny though, but and when Agro, turned on Danger Kid, the crowd dropped. I've never seen a shock factor like that on the indie scene. You see these major things happen on TV. You see this was the biggest pop that I've ever seen, probably. Like people going, "What am I witnessing?" Because nobody I would have ever thought that.
Mhm.
Nobody, and especially coming off of two banger matches with above the rest and just really being united tag team. I don't know. It was very shocking, but again, telling a story, drawing the emotion, and that's what wrestling is. You're telling us stories through fights, and they do it so perfectly. So for them to be able to teach and train others, it's no wonder why so many superstars are coming out of Maine and coming out of the
Mhm.
dojo. Not that I'm like I said, New England's got a lot of great schools. I mean, they just picked up for New England Pro Academy Dijak. So now you got Anthony Green, former Limitless champion, and Dijak as your head trainers over there. That's a powerhouse for training.
Yeah, it is.
So no matter where you live, I feel like in New England, if you pick a school right now, you can kind of get, if you live in Worcester, go to Beyond School. If you live there, go there. If you live there, go, to Limitless. You're gonna get a really good foundation for what it is to
Mhm.
be pro wrestling from someone that's been to the next level, or someone that's been to the next stage, for someone that knows what it takes to get to the next stage too.
Yep.
Um, and I think that makes a difference, people knowing not just guessing, hey, it's one thing to be a great trainer, but to never be on that platform, it's like, okay, well, you only know so much. But now we got so many people that have been there, have come back, have been on TV, still are on TV, still going to Japan, coming back, teaching everybody, teaching locker rooms, whole locker rooms, new things. And it's just like wrestling's getting better again. And, it doesn't matter if it's WWE or the indie scene right now. I feel its wrestling is in its renaissance period once again. People are just it's starting to spark more and more interest. People are getting involved again. TV is taking off. People are getting involved in indie scene shows. IWTV is big now. GCW is getting bigger. MLW, Ring of Honor. A lot of promotions running, a lot of excitement running.
Yeah.
Um, and it wasn't always, it dips, it fluctuates the industry, but I feel like right now is a really strong point to be kind of in it. And I just love seeing where it all goes, where it's going to go. Because the indie scene, sometimes they'll follow the line of what's going on in the major scene and they'll kind of, weave themselves. But then they start taking different directions and doing things differently. And that's what I love to see because that's when they kind of, break outside the box and show, hey, this is what pro wrestling can be, and this is what pro wrestling can be, and this is what it can be.
Mhm.
Um, and that's where it gets fun. Um, but so yeah, what other so you got those three, you said MPW, Atlantic Pro, Let's Wrestle. You have any other promotions you're looking at the time or just kind of seeing what takes you?
Um, I'd love to get in the proving ground. I actually went down to proving ground last weekend, and I liked what I saw. I saw some talent that I'd like to work with. So I'm hoping maybe at some point before the end of the year I can get into a proving ground.
Yeah, Derek Simonetti runs a really nice program down there. I like him. He's another one. I saw them. It's funny, him and Limitless I got into around the same time, and unfortunately it was right before the pandemic. So I
Hmm.
started watching these shows on IWTV, got super invested, bought tickets, and couldn't use them. I had tickets to the Proving Ground show, which was going to be Mike Montero versus Tim Conway in a steel cage match, which was going to be amazing. And then for the Limitless show, unfortunately, it was the Anthony Green versus Chris Statlander match that never happened, which I was totally
Hmm.
bummed about because that was going to be a crazy title defense. Um, but I waited and I said, you know what? These are two promotions I've been wanting to go to. They're a little bit further out, one in, Northern Mass and one in Maine. I said, well, once this pandemic is over, I'm going to make it a point. And I did. I went to both shows going back. First one was the Limitless, and I went to it, and that was such a wild show because he didn't even have to announce a single match and it sold out. People just went. People went to see
Hmm.
wrestling. They didn't care who was on there. They didn't care who was going to show up. We didn't know who was fighting who. People were just happy to be back and see each other, and everybody was just, back to normal. And Proving Ground, same thing. I actually got lucky. I saw one of their I got to go to one of their tapings during the pandemic, and then I went to one of their, the show when it came back. And again, it was just great to be in that audience and kind of I felt fulfilled. Like these were goals as a fan. Because even as a fan, we have goals, and that was also around the time I started podcasting a lot. So I started to want to follow these companies because these are, like I said, the companies I believe are going to produce future stars. So I started, sponsoring companies. I started interviewing talent on the company, talking to the champions, talking to the promoters, getting
Hmm.
friendly with people. And that's what kind of got me into the sponsoring game. Again, I sponsored a few limitless shows during the pandemic. I sponsored NCW, Proving Ground, some shows out in Jersey, Camp Leapfrog. And I'll still do now limitless time to time. I like Rad Pro as well. I'll do. Um, and I do this for many reasons. A, I like to support the industry. I really believe in pro wrestling on the indie level,
Hmm.
but also I believe, as far as promotion wise, I run, a YouTube. I'm a YouTuber. I run podcasts. I'm a podcaster. I all this requires marketing. Now I could pay Google to shoot ads off, and random people from around the state can listen and see them. But those aren't the people I want to watch. Those aren't the people that I want to watch this interview. I need people that are at Limitless that know
Yep.
you to want to watch this. And I
Hmm.
feel like the best way I'm going to get those fans is to directly market at those shows, and that's by sponsoring. They say my name. Hey, sponsored by VSW Podcasting. IWTV hears it. The crowd hears it. They go back on their phones. They go back at home. They check it out. Cool. Hey, they're talking about. Hey, I just saw this guy. Hey, 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 hey.
Hmm.
And I found that to be the best way to market my stuff is through sponsoring. So that's what I continue doing. And that's my kind of way of helping. And in 2020, like I said, I saw a lot of wrestlers struggling because I became friends with a lot of wrestlers on social media. And when that hit, the pandemic, everybody was out of work. Regular work, one thing. But now when their passion or their weekend pleasure is now out, people
Hmm.
start getting depressed.
Yep.
And it's also a loss of income. Wrestling might not be the most lucrative, but it's that extra money every weekend. You're selling t-shirts, you're getting out there, you're getting your matches, sell more merch. You might have a great night, sell all your merch. Who knows? But there's that at least the opportunity for the cash grabs. That was gone. People are just out there that's like, huh. So I started, buying random shirts, doing random buys, being like, if you have a link to, Pro Wrestling Tees, post your link here and I just pick one at random, buy it. It starts, supporting any which way I could. Um, because again, it's something I believe in. I believe in the independent scene. I believe in the women and men in this scene that are, like I said, every weekend coming out, entertaining, dedicating, and doing stuff that's the same stuff that's happening on the mainstream, but they're not making $1 million to do it.
Hmm.
They're doing it for the passion.
I mean, a lot of it is a passion, and a lot of it is hobby that you eventually want to turn into a career. And sometimes you think that you're not gonna make it, but then you just have to keep moving because eventually you may find that break that takes you to the next level.
Yeah, or I mean, sometimes it might even be a few attempts. The first time you get out there, whatever character you think that's going to work, it might not work. You might have to rebrand yourself. You might have to
Hmm.
repackage yourself. You might have to do some self work. It's not wrestling's not easy. It's not an instantaneous over the night success. Sometimes it might be. Some people are just over. They just naturally get over it. You have your, Joe Hendrys, you have your Orange Cassidy, you have those people out there. But for the majority, you got to take some work. You got to put work into yourself. You got to create that. You got to do a lot of behind the scenes stuff that nobody sees to get yourself to that point, not just physically, but also mentally. You're going out, you're being this character, you're putting yourself in that shoes, regardless of what else is going on. Now, granted, they say a lot of times, wrestling characters an extension to yourself. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes these people are playing totally different opposites of what they would be even like in real life.
Yeah.
And so you're getting a whole diversity of it. And again, it's not something that's easy. It's taken lightly because it looks seamless. It looks something that anybody could do. I could be a pro wrestler. I could fake fight and, say a cool promo and call out my opponent. But could you really do that in front of 50,000 people? Could you really do that in front with all the pressure and everything? No, probably not. You're not trained to do that. I'm not trained to do that. I know I personally couldn't do that. A lot of things are easier said than done and look easier said than done. And that's, I think, is something I just, again, I put some respect in it because I've stepped in the ropes. I've seen how hard it can be. I've watched guys and girls struggle training wise and just get to where they want to get, where it wasn't so easy in the beginning until they found their groove and then they were able to progress.
Hmm.
Got a few more questions for you. Is there anybody out there right now, and it could be, nationally, that you have your eyes that you just would love to just get in the ring and fight?
My number one pick is Big Beef Gnarls Garvin. Like that's been the match that I've wanted now for about a year and a half. Rip Bison's another. Um, I like to Mike Grossa.
Yeah.
He's a guy who I'd love to get in there with. Mike Montero. I mean, I got a little bit of a taste of Mike Montero a couple years ago, but it was a fatal four-way match, so there wasn't a lot. It wasn't something that happened one-on-one where we could both tell a story with each other. So Mike Montero is another guy I'd love to work with.
So now you're
There's a guy,
jumping into that proving ground territory there. Mike Grasso,
yeah.
Mike Montero.
Um, there's a guy down in he works for NCW and Proving Ground. The heavy hitter Shay
Um,
Cash, I believe is
Trey
his name.
Cash, yep.
See, I'd love to tie up with him. At some point, I'd love to tie up in a one-on-one match with Brian Malonis.
Oh
Um,
wow, that'd be fun.
I've been watching Brian Malonis. I've taken a couple of seminars from Brian Malonis. I actually had a tag match a couple years ago against it was me and cousin Larry versus Ace Romero and Brian Malonis for the Vacation Land tag titles, and Larry and I had won the titles that night. So I think a one-on-one match with Brian Malonis would also be a match that I'd love to have.
I was working with Ace Romero. Now he's another heavy hitter.
I had a match with him down at Gino's Rock Club in Portland a couple months ago, and I tell you what, he when he lays in that finishing clothesline that he gives, the discus line, that is no joke. I tell you what, I that was the fastest bump I've ever taken.
Hmm. Yeah,
He
I
hit
was
that.
actually I just posted an older clip of him from a show, and literally he takes somebody's head off with that thing. It's like,
Yeah,
boom, and it's fast, it's hard, and it's like damn. But
he's
he's
like,
another one that despite how big he is, he can move.
yeah, he can move. I've been in some training sessions with Ace Romero, and he's another one of those trainers that will push you because I think he trained at the Dudley's Academy.
Yep.
So, he knows that intense training because, if you listen to Bully Ray on Busted Open, and I listen to Busted Open every day, Monday through Friday. If you listen to Busted, Bully Ray has had some students go through there. Jessica Carr, who is a referee on WWE, she went through the Dudley Academy. Ace went through Dudley Academy, and I'm sure there's other big names that have went through the Dudley Academy that I know, but I don't know that they went through the Dudley Academy. So
Yeah.
like that, the Dudley Academy, I'd love to go train there. I'd love to go train at Ken Anderson, Mr. Kennedy's school out in, I believe it's Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Um, Nepwad, New England Pro Wrestling. I'd love to go train down there. There are so many. there's so many people that's come out of New England Pro Wrestling Academy that has made
Yep.
names for themselves. People like Kofi Kingston, Tommaso Ciampa, Mercedes Monet, uh, people like that. And then you got guys coming out of there, people like Aaron Rourke, who is on fire right now.
Yep.
He's one of the big guys on Wrestling Open and Beyond, and he's making a name for himself in Limitless. You know, uh, Creative Pros, another school I'd like to check out
That's
because
another one. Look at the stars coming out of Creative Pro. You have all that. You have like Shook Crew. You got Max Caster coming out. MJF came out of there. Aaron Rourke trained there as well. Between that and New England Pro, great school. That's where I did my fantasy camping on. I worked down there and I went to train down there. I was looking into schools at the time. For me personally, I just don't have enough time to dedicate to it. Having a kid, having a wife, having a job, having everything else,
Mhm.
having my age, knowing where I stand in things, I don't see myself being a full-time wrestler, even though I could, potentially could do it. I don't have the training time. I don't have the time to put
Yeah.
in that full effort.
Mhm.
But I am thinking of, going to school to learn something else in the industry, like to learn how to broadcast, to learn how to, commentate or to ring announce or to do interviews through, one of the promotions or something else. But so I wanted to learn a little something. So I went to their fantasy camp and it was just mesmerizing seeing those kind of guys come in and talk about it, talk about stories of Triple H coming through there. And you think about, what you've seen on TV, and we've just had that rich history ever since I think Killer Kowalski was training. We've been producing stars in this area. It doesn't matter which school. Bell Time's another one. They put out Alec Price, one of the greatest, pro wrestlers right now out to date. Talk about a
One of
kid
the
who's
hottest pro
grinded.
wrestlers right now.
He was grinding out there, I remember, pandemic in the dojo, he was kind of making a name for himself and the road and next thing you know, he's on Beyond, he's on IWTV, he's Limitless Champion, he's IWE champion, he's everywhere.
Hmm.
Um, and this is the future of what wrestling is. These are the next young bucks. These are the next, Kenny Omegas. These are the next stars that are going to be, taking over the scene at some point.
Hmm.
And again, it all starts in the halls. It all starts in these little halls that, we get to go see for very short money. We're lucky. We don't got to spend an arm and a leg. But you just mentioned some really great talent. Like, is a that spans, probably from Rhode Island to Maine. These guys work everywhere.
Hmm.
Mike Montero will be champion in, Rhode Island, be champion in, NCW. He's won titles out here. When he's been to Maine, he's been back to Maine. I remember when he used to be in like the influence early days of Limitless, he was out there, and then he left for a while, came back. He's been back in Maine, MPW. The Dirt City Murder Crew just did a tag team match out there. I love seeing the guys that I see, locally here come out, to Maine. Because to me, even that, it's like cool. I'm getting to see them fight the main crew or the main people that I was seeing in Limitless before, only fighting other Limitless people. Now I'm seeing the emergence of like my NCW Proving Ground, wrestlers, and then my Limitless kind of people coming together. MPW's done some matches too, some great matchups. You got other people like Isana coming out there. I love Isana. She's great. She's someone that really I drew to in NCW when I went out there because again, women wrestling for me growing up wasn't really there. It wasn't
Hmm.
a thing. You know, we had spotty women wrestling. We had like Alondra Blaze for a few years, and then like it was like no women wrestling. Then we had the Attitude Era where everything was sexualized, then we had like none. And then I stopped watching wrestling. So when I went in and saw people like Isana and stuff come out there, kick ass, I was like, wow, women's wrestling's gone really good. And then I started to see, something that I find unique on the scene, and that's intergender wrestling. You don't get to see that on the mainstream as much. So seeing that on the indie scene done right is it's amazing matches. And you can tell a really good story with that too. So I mean, there's a lot to go into it, but again, indie scene place to be. So you got some plans for 24, and it sounds like really solid ones at that. Grinding, getting out there, getting into all these different promotions. By 25, you'll probably be a household name.
Another promotion that I forgot to mention that I'd love to get on is Fight Life. They're
Yes.
they're an upcoming promotion, and I see guys on there. You got Rip Bison and Aiden Agro and guys like Ricky Smokes and you know, Danny Miles, people like that.
JT Dunn,
They're
all
coming
those
up.
guys.
So it's like if I could get on a Fight Life, Let's Wrestle, Fight Life, and Proving Ground are three, in my mind, are three big companies that would be amazing to work for. And I'm already working for Let's Wrestle, which, you know, besides the trainers at the Limitless Dojo, and besides Brett Goslin, who BRG, who pushed and urged and pushed for me to start my training at the Limitless Dojo. One other guy that I can't thank enough and that I feel that I owe everything to at that point too is Randy Carver Jr. because he's had faith in me. He's given me opportunity after opportunity, and just with the trainers and BRG and Randy, I don't really know if Jason Maverick would be where Jason Maverick is today without those people.
No, and that's one thing, that I'm grateful to, for Randy Carver Jr. He's someone that showed me what wrestling should be,
Mhm.
and can be, and he set a standard for me of what I look for in independent wrestling. And he's someone that always sets the standard up higher and higher every show of what it should be. But it's a clean promotion, it's a clean show. The fan base is something that it's very hard to explain unless you've entered into, a Yarmouth or into a Brewer main show where you walk in and everybody's friendly. There is no hostility. Everybody knows you. You might not know, they might not know you by name, but they know your face.
Mhm.
Everybody's cool. Everybody's chill. Randy himself will shake your hand. He's been very nice to me. He's been very generous in talking. I feel like some promoters, they get some success, all of a sudden they're businessmen. They don't need to talk to fans so much unless it's, whatever, a business transaction. Now, granted,
Mhm.
I've done business with, these promotions like Randy Carver because like I said, I sponsor it. That's a business transaction. We talk, hey, how much is it to do this? Do that, do this. But he's also responded to, just normal emails of, hey, how's it going? Happy 4th of July. Um, just hey, what do you think about this wrestling show coming? Just shooting the shit about wrestling or the scene of Maine or just normal stuff that doesn't really involve money or doesn't involve me paying or doesn't involve him. It's just normal talk. And he'll say things like, we're grateful for what you do with VSW, interviewing these guys, getting guys out there. Because not everybody wants, can get interviews. Or some people, might be shy, but if you can get them on there, they can get one and they can do more interviews. And that's how people can also get noticed nowadays is, getting on podcasts, getting out there,
Mhm.
getting and listened to. And I love to do it. I love to get eyes and ears on the indie guys. That's just, what I like to do. And again, I heavily focus on Limitless because I feel like it's a great, it's just a great, like I said, great mix, and it's a great showcase of talent. The people out there are just, they're all go-getters. There's
Mhm.
nobody out there kind of just riding the ride. Everybody's out there because they want to get somewhere.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it's great to hear that though, that, people believing in people and people kind of putting faith in people and really, allowing people to kind of grow into where they think they can be. Sometimes that doesn't happen. Some people get shut down or there is no faith. There is no, we need this or it's not going to work. Um, but it sounds like you had a great experience in this and it just kind of transitioning into it and just everything lining up.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I, I don't know where I'd be right. I don't know how my life would be right now if professional wrestling wasn't a part of it. Because, I used to be the kid that always got himself into trouble. And then I got into professional wrestling and I started finding who I am. And, I started to grow as a person. And, you know, if it wasn't for pro wrestling, I don't know who Jason Glites would. I can't tell you who that person would be.
Yeah, and I think that it does become part of us. It does change the way we look at things, the way we take care of ourselves. That's one thing that I think today's superstars have the advantage of over the yesterday. They know their bodies, they know their limits, they know what to do, they know how to better take care of, beat it. Substance abuse, yes, it's still there, but it's not like it was in the 80s and 90s. You can tell that because people are having more. in-ring time, living longer, and doing more in the industry. You're not having all these early
Mhm.
deaths like we had in the 90s of, wrestlers that I grew up watching. They all died very young, compared. People are taking it more serious, which is great. Because again, it can be something that can be a lot, you got people now wrestling on the indie scene. I saw some guy, he's like 70. He's going out there wrestling on shows on the indie circuit, and he's in, tip-top condition. That's insane.
Wow.
Granted he's a fluke, but you also got people that are in their 50s doing it and 55 doing it, and people that, as long as your body and you can keep into that, you can keep it going. And to a lot of people, that's the life. That's what, like you said, it changes the course of what you do. What kind of trouble could you get into? What would you have done? I think of that too. Even boxing changed me. I started to take things more serious because I wanted to, be in better shape. So, I started to prioritize other things that, maybe I wouldn't. I didn't party as much anymore. I didn't do this as much anymore. I didn't do that much anymore. Um, Same with pro wrestling. You start putting things in focus on that. You start putting your training first. You start going to shows on weekends. You might check out other shows. It's just different things. But it's just great though. I think it's a great story you have here in pro wrestling, and you definitely belong here. It feels natural. I could see Big Country versus Big Beef. I could see that headlining a show. It just looks for it.
That that is a dream match. Win or lose that match, if that match ever takes place, that is a dream match that I can mark off the top of my pro wrestling bucket list.
Oh, I think the fans would win that match. The fans watching would win that match. I think that would be a great, heavy hitting, hard hitting, good storytelling match that would just be like, wow. But yeah, I could see that in the future. I could see, I could see whatever you want to accomplish, you accomplishing. You seem very, goal orientated and you're a go getter. You're not slacking out there. You are making the necessary moves to get where you want to go. And that can be kind of difficult at times because real world stuff comes out. Sometimes things interfere, but I think that's what makes or breaks the people getting to the next level. They take those things that happen in real life, but they also continue and they push through some of it, and they even use the wrestling to help push through it.
Yeah.
Wrestling can be a good therapeutic way to get rid of a lot of emotions, anger, anxieties, whatever it might be. Use it as that tool it can be, and move along, and you see people excel and accelerate. And I love to see it. I just really do. Let me ask you one more question, because we're just about out of time here. Where can find folks find you on social media?
So on Facebook, you can find me under the Jason Maverick Facebook page. Also a Big Country Jason Maverick Facebook page, but that account was hacked with my previous Facebook personal account, so I had to remake a new account, and it's just the Jason Maverick page. You can find me on Twitter X at jmaverick812. Um, I'm on TikTok, but I don't really post a lot of. I mean, I post footage on there. So if you want to go on TikTok and find Big Country, you can find me at Big Country Jason Maverick on TikTok. Instagram, I believe. Hang on, just let me look here. My Instagram is Jason Maverick 812. So those are the social media platforms that I use. So you can give me a follow there. Um, I I usually post photos or match clips or promos or whatever on each of those. Um, I'm a little slower at posting stuff on Twitter because you know Twitter's not my go-to, but I will occasionally post stuff on Twitter. Most of my stuff you'll find is on the Facebook profile.
Yeah, it's kind of like myself. I go Facebook first, and then Twitter I kind of use for like, I don't know, like IWTV stuff or other stuff. But
Mhm.
most of my stuff, I feel like Facebook's more personable, where people can kind of actually engage easier and you can be seen easier.
Yep.
I feel like Twitter, I post and I feel like I'm lost in this big world. I don't know.
Right.
Um,
It's I don't know. Twitter's just a different world when it comes to your stuff with stuff. So I mean, Facebook is my uh primary place to be when it
and
comes to
again,
post.
you can, and people will be able to, you obviously post what shows you're going to be at and where you're
Yeah.
going to be, and so as I said, hopefully, I mean, I personally like to watch wrestlers that I have on my show. I usually invite them on the show because I'm interested in them as wrestlers. I've already seen some of their matches. I've watched them on IWTV and I want to get to know them
Mhm.
more. But, I know fans at home too love to sometimes follow along with, who we're talking with. Even from another country, I've had people from like other countries or other states that you would never think like how did they get a hold of this? And it's like, hey, where can I find this in such wrestling? Like, how do you
Mhm.
even know? Oh, I watched your show and then you guys mentioned it. I'm like, oh, really? Interesting. Like that to me, I find that fascinating. You get someone from England saying they heard me talk about, a small show in Maine or a small show in
Mhm.
Dedham. It's like, wow, that's my goal. I succeeded. I wanted to get eyes and ears on something smaller out there, and that's what I did. And I guess that's the power of social media, but very cool stuff happening. We can't wait to see more of it. Thank you so much, though, for taking the time to come out here. I really appreciate it.
Hey, no problem.
And can't wait to see you out there on the scene, whether it be Limitless, whether it be Atlantic Pro, MPW, hopefully soon Proving Ground as well, like you mentioned. Let's get you everywhere. Let's get you all over New England because you know what? I think New England needs more big country. I really do.
Yes, sir.
And thank you, everybody at home, for watching. And as always, support indie wrestling. Versace Stoner out.